Hey, darling, will you come closer, please? You sit up.
Oh, look at that. Hello.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, have you got something to say, Teddy? Oh, that's lovely. Wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Fabulous. What a fabulous greeting.
Can you say welcome? Hello and welcome. Can we say hello and welcome? Teddy? That's lovely. That's
Thank
hello.
Thank you very much, Teddy.
Welcome to Pet Talk with me, Teddy, and me, Anna, and our fabulous guest today, who is, in fact, Colleen Kersey. Hello, Colleen.
Hello, Anna. How are you?
Very well. I can only do well with Teddy by my side.
That's so cute. I've never ever been greeted like that by an animal on a Zoom call, so that's fabulous.
Well, I invited you on because you are an animal communicator. And this being Pet Talk, of course, we have to have you on, don't we? So I think it would be good to begin with an explanation of what an animal communicator is.
Okie dokie. So an animal communicator is much like a translator, if you like. So I am able to receive images, words, feelings, feelings as in emotions and feelings as in sensations, smells and tastes from an animal. I know the tastes aren't so great, but maybe we'll come to that later. From an animal in response to questions which I ask it. And then I translate those things into sentences that people can understand and relay it back to people so that we can have this kind of two-way dialogue. So people can ask me questions, I present it to the animal gives me the information back, and I translate it back to the people.
So we're talking about telepathy, aren't we?
Yes, mental telepathy. Yes, but that's not mind control. A couple of people have said to me, oh, the kid, can you tell my dog it needs to do that? And it's like, well, no, that's not quite that's not quite how it works. But yes, you're right. It is mental telepathy. Yes.
So how do you do this?
Oh, I wish I knew, Anna. I really wish I knew. It happened to me purely by accident. So I wasn't kind of setting out to be an animal communicator, and neither can I give you lots of stories about, how I've always been able to talk to animals. I was busy in a Reiki session, if you're aware of Reiki, right? And I was doing a distance session with a cat in America. And I was deep in the zone and it was fantastic. And, I was having this lovely session and all of a sudden this image popped into my head. And I can describe it perfectly. It was a tall window with these mustard colored curtains. It had a base seat with a cushion. And I remember kind of stopping and thinking, was I nodding off? I thought maybe I'd fallen asleep, But something prompted me at the end of the Reiki session to mention it to the lady as I was reporting back on the Reiki session with her cat. And she said, oh my God, Colleen, you've just described our lounge window. And I was like, what? And she said, that's where the cat sleeps, on that window seat. And I was like, no ways. And I said, but it was mustard colored curtains. And she said, yeah, they're long. It's a tall bay window. And I remember getting off the call and thinking, no. And I did some research and discovered this interspecies communication and that everybody can do it. It's a bit like everybody can learn to play the piano, right? And some learn quicker than others. Some have a natural aptitude, some have to practice more often, but anybody can do it. So I did lots of studying. I ended up doing a course, did shed loads of case studies, and as the results came through from the case studies, I was just, oh my goodness, this is happening, and the coincidences are just too crazy. So, so here I am.
So for people who are less familiar with how Reiki works and the idea that you could actually be doing this on people who are absent, could you explain a little bit about that?
I can, yes. So this works on the premise that everything is energy. everything has an energetic vibration. Every living thing, well, some people say also every non-living thing, but let's just stick with the living things for the time being, right? Because crystals vibrate as well, but they aren't living. So every living thing has a vibration, and that vibration and energy is all connected. Everything is connected. And you know what it's like when you walk into a room and you know somebody's had a fight, or you walk into a room and you know there's chemistry between people. We can feel energy, we're aware of it. And Reiki works on that premise, that you can feel somebody's energy even though they're not in the same room as you, because you're connected via this massive energetic network, if that makes sense.
Indeed it does. And I think really what we're saying then is that because you were in a very relaxed state, because you have to be, some people might call it trance-like state, but because you are in a very relaxed state, as you are sending out healing thoughts, healing energy, then you as a transmitter also can become a receiver.
Indeed, yes, which I inadvertently became. That's right. Yes, yes, yes.
So I guess the next question I have is, how did you then train for this, and why did you need training? Because clearly then you have a natural aptitude. So what is the training for? What
Self-doubt. You don't just wake up one day and go, oh my God, I can talk to animals, and no. What I wanted the training for was really to give me a framework. So I was like, okay, I can receive images. How do I put myself back into that state? Because I had done distance Reiki sessions before then, and I had done distance Reiki sessions after then, and it hadn't always happened. So I wanted to learn how to bring that state back. And whilst I did lots of my own research, there's lots of free information available. There's lots of YouTube channels. There's lots of people, and I have loads of books, as you can imagine. But I wanted to have somebody sit me through and talk me through some sort of framework and make sense of what I was doing. And I teach people how to read tarot cards as well as another business. And one of my students enrolled on a course, and as we always do in the first session, chat about what we did, and she said, oh, I'm a professional animal communicator. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I spoke to her afterwards and said, can I do a course to give me some framework? And what she did was she helped me put into place the visualization and the meditation that I have to do beforehand. I have an extremely active mind. I tend to kind of bubble over all the time, and that doesn't always work when you're trying to be in a trance-like state, as you so clearly put early on. So that was a big thing for me. It was learning how to quieten my mind beforehand. And then the process of connecting with the animal, the process of learning how to translate the images. You'll see from some of the videos I've got planned coming up that sometimes I get images and my analytical mind goes, that means that. And actually it doesn't always. I have to learn, and I have to quiz the animal about what they mean about it. So yes, that's what the training was. It was kind of like to fine tune it. I was sitting with all this information, but I didn't really have a proper framework and structure. And what she also did was give me case studies as part of the training, which helped the self-doubt. Because when you're doing it on your own and you're talking with your own pets, you can bias what you're getting. But when you're chatting with a dog in New Zealand, and the teacher was asking me questions and I was able to answer them, then you go, okay, okay, this is working, this is really working, I'm really doing this. So yeah, so that's why I thought the training was beneficial, and it was definitely, yes.
You talk about self-doubt, and of course people might think that the world is divided between believers and non-believers, and assume that what if you're actually doing it, you're going to believe everything that you're getting. And that's not always the way, is it?
No.
Because for anyone not least for those for whom it begins to happen,
Mm.
this is not a run-of-the-mill experience.
No, it's not. And to this day, I will share with you that to this day, when I'm finished typing up a transcript, because I type it up so that everybody always gets a transcript, maybe, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times out of 10, I kind of look at that and go, no, really? And I'm learning just to trust myself, because what I've learned is I need to put that analytical mind to one side. Because what happens is I get the information from the animal and immediately I try to make sense of it. But of course, it's not always going to make sense to me. It's only when I then give that transcript to the owners and the owners read it and they go, oh my God, Colleen, you won't believe, when you said blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, yeah. And they'll say, but that's what happened. And then they'll tell me the story and I'll think, oh my goodness. And I remember writing it and thinking, I've got no idea what this means, but I'm just going to put it in because that's what the animal told me. So it's, and I'm getting better at it. Just recently, there was a cat that I spoke to, a cat that was in spirit. And at the end, I always ask the animal if they want to share anything, because obviously I've bombarded them with questions. They need to get a chance to say their thing. And the cat just said, I see you. I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And he was like, I see you. That's all. I see you. And I thought, okay, just go with it, Colleen. And I put it in the document. Anyway, the lady came back to me and she said, oh my God, Colleen, you won't believe it. That last phrase, every night before I went to bed, I used to kiss the cat on the head and say, I see you. I love you. And I was like, oh my God. And it's those moments where you kind of think you're typing it and you're going, I don't know what this means. I hope it's going to resonate. And then they come back with something like that. And then you just think, oh my gosh, that's, yeah, incredible. It really is incredible.
So let me get this straight. This was a cat who had already passed.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So now we're not just talking about animal telepathy as in communicating with animals who are here. You are saying that you're communicating with these.
I can as well. Yes. With animals in spirit. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So for a lot of people, this is quite a huge leap, because they may not necessarily believe that there is such a thing as life after death. Or if they do, many have been taught that animals don't have souls.
Oh, I would beg to differ. I've been dictated to by a horse very recently. And he had a lot to say. So he most definitely has a soul. I had to ask him to slow down because he had so much to say. He was a horse that belonged to somebody probably 40 years ago. And he had a lot to say. And yeah, there were some things there as well, that I typed up and thought, oh gosh, I hope, that doesn't make sense to me, but I'm just going to send it. And, of course it resonated. So yeah, absolutely. They have a soul.
So you're acting as a medium with animals.
Yes. And it's funny you should say that, because, the first time, because I'm still in contact with my animal communication tutor. And I mentioned to her one day, oh, I had a case study. Someone said, oh, my dog has passed, can you try to talk to it? And I just didn't think anything of it. I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. Have you got the photo? And she said, yeah, here's the photo. Had this fantastic chat. It resonated. There was stuff there that I told her that I couldn't have known. And I mentioned it to my animal communication tutor, and she was like, but Colleen, that's mediumship. And I was like, what? It hadn't even occurred to me. I was like, oh, she says, but you're speaking to animals in spirit. So I don't ever think of myself as a medium, but I guess it is.
But I think that's the thing, that there is going to be this crossover, because as you said, this is about energy. And if you are able to communicate across space,
yes,
then you are, because everything is energy, then there is no reason why you wouldn't be able to communicate with spirit, which is energy without form.
That's true.
So it makes complete sense to me. So, okay, how do we know this is real?
purely by the things that I feed back to the people. So the examples that I give, I explain animals that have taken me to a certain place, and I describe the place. If you saw my video that I did yesterday about the dog in spirit, he took me to a very distinct place, which I described. I described a grass path. There were trees on the right-hand side. There was water on the right. It was there was grass here, and it was a long path. And that was where he took me immediately when I connected with him. And that was apparently where they used to take him for walks, which was alongside a canal. There's descriptions of things. I always describe the animal's personality. Now, obviously, I don't meet the animal beforehand. I'm just working on a photo. But whenever I connect to the animal, I always say, tell me about yourself. So I describe their personality. People could argue, yeah, well, it's a cute dog. It's obviously going to act like that. It doesn't always. Sometimes I have a cute cat and I go, whew, this cat's a bit, a bit spicy, or she's a bit, and there's lots of examples of people will ask questions, what don't you like, or what do you like, or what frightens you? The answers that I'm able to give from that, I don't know the animals, I don't know the households, I don't know the people, but the answers that I'm able to give are things that people can relate to. I like it when you give me the food there, or I prefer the wet food to the dry food. And then people will say, oh my gosh, I've just moved them onto dry food and they haven't been eating it. And, things like that. So that's how I know it's real, because every single time I do it, people come back with amazing confirmation. And then we either have a good laugh because I've described a situation which is particularly funny, or we kind of wow with an understanding that an animal has produced of something. It really is. It's quite mind-blowing. I still find it mind-blowing.
You're working from photographs, and you haven't really had much conversation, I presume, with the guardians of the animal, which means that you cannot be doing the very thing that will be leveled at you, which is cold reading.
Yes, I think so. What happens is that I do majority of my business from LinkedIn, because that's my social media of choice. So people will send me the email and say, I'd like you to talk to my dog Spot. I say, great. And they say, how does it work? And I say, well, you send me a load of questions that you would like to ask the animal. I can help you with the questions if required. And you send me a recent photo, must be a recent photo. Don't send me a photograph from 5 years ago. Recent photo, which they then do. So I get the questions through and I get the photograph through. I try not to read the questions, because I don't want my analytical mind to jump in and start wondering why the dog doesn't like playing with its ball on Tuesday afternoons. And then I get the photograph, and then I sit and I do the reading. Once or twice, if I'm getting something that doesn't feel quite right, or I don't understand something, I will check in with the person and say, for instance, somebody recently said one of the questions was, do you get on with Flash? So I email the person, I'm like, okay, who's Flash? Because I need to picture in my mind who Flash is, so that when I present the question to the animal, I can picture the other cat or the dog or the horse or something. But other than that, no, I get nothing, which is good, because I don't want my analytical mind to step in.
Exactly. And that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what you're also not doing is you're not having a live conversation with the animal. So the animal's not sitting there or lying there whilst you have this conversation.
That's right. And I had a lady say to me yesterday, oh, how am I going to get my dog to sit still for 2 hours? And I was like, no, it's okay. You don't need to. The dog doesn't have to be there. Sorry, I interrupted you, Anne.
No, and that's right. And the reason would be because you need to be on your own in order to get into that meditative state.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Good. Okay, so how is this useful? Actually, it's just occurred to me that just as a little example, I had a conversation with an animal communicator on another of my YouTube channels. And Teddy was just lying here. And when we finished the recording, he popped up and said hello, like he occasionally does. And her immediate response was, she said to me, he's really got a sense of humor. and you know, people think it's odd, but I always talk about his sense of humor.
Fantastic. Yeah, because you could just pick it up somehow.
Yeah, he does have a great sense of humor. It's very clear that he does, because he teases us in all sorts of different ways, and it is not anthropomorphizing. You could see he knows what he's doing.
He's mischievous. Yeah.
He's got this little twinkle. You know, a jogger will be running past and he starts to run, and just as I'm getting a bit, you know, nervous, he looks at me, and I honestly, it's like he's saying, just kidding.
How's it going?
It's that type of thing that he does. And also when he plays games, etc., you can see that he knows exactly how to tease us, and that's his humor. So one statement, but that statement that she made, it's not the only aspect of his personality, but it's certainly an incredibly pertinent part of his personality.
Yes, and something that you wouldn't ordinarily or necessarily know just from looking at an animal. You know, you can look at a great big Doberman and go, wow, he's a strong boy. It was like, well, yeah. Or a cute little poodle going, oh, I bet she's really sweet. You know, sometimes you can tell personality from the, but sense of humor, that she's going to have.
It's a bit abstract, isn't it? So I'm very impressed.
Brilliant.
The other thing that impressed me, of course, was reading on your LinkedIn on one occasion, you talking about a conversation with a cat complaining about the nauseous fumes that came out of the dog in the evening. And that just cracked me up. Tell us about that.
That was really funny. So this was a classic example of trying to understand an image that an animal is giving to you. So the cat gave me an image of a litter tray. And this was actually my best friend's cat. She was my best friend provided lots of my initial case studies before I went professional. And I was like, litter tray. I know this cat doesn't have a litter tray. So I'm like, litter tray. So I call my friend and I go, Kit Kat doesn't have a litter tray, right? And she's like, no. So, okay. I'll call you back. Litter tray. And then I'm like, okay, Colleen, litter tray. What are you saying in I'm seeing poop in the litter tray. Right. Okay, we're on to something. Okay. So Kit Kat, what is it about the poop? Why are you showing me the poop? And then I get the smell. And I'm like, okay, the smell, is it the smell of the, and then as I said, is it the smell of the poop? I can see the dogs I can get the image in I can see the dogs on the sofa, and I can see her sitting up like this, and then I'm getting the smell, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the smells coming from the dog's bums. Oh my, and I'm laughing, and then I'm thinking to myself, because I'm only, this was early days, and I'm thinking the cat doesn't like the smell of the dog. I don't know what I can say on your channel, so I'm hesitating, but you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? So then when I fed the information back to my best friend, and she's got a Labrador and 2 Jack Russells, and they jump up on the sofas at nighttime. That's their treat while my best friend and her husband are watching TV. And the cat jumps up on the end, and I said to my friend, what do you feed your dogs? She's like, why? And I said, they've got bad wind. And she goes, yeah, but only at nighttime when we all sit on the sofas at night. And I'm like, yeah, the cat told me. And she says, what do you mean the cat told you? I said, the cat told me she doesn't like the smell of the dogs. And they're breaking wind at nighttime. So we had a real laugh about that. And that was the first inkling I had, because this cat had a very professional attitude about her. I could almost see her wearing a business suit. Do you know what I mean? She was very disapproving of the smell, very, very disapproving. And it was a kind of like, oh my golly gosh, the smell is atrocious. And it was hysterical. Yeah, it was quite funny, and my friend kind of confirmed, oh gosh, she said yes, at nighttime it's terrible, and she said, I wondered why she always jumped off the sofa. And I said, well, now you know, because she doesn't like the smell.
That's it. It's those details. That's what we're talking about. It's the
Yeah,
details
yeah,
that are the evidence. So when people say, how do we know it's real? And where is the evidence? Well, there is the evidence,
yeah,
right? Because it's
yeah,
in that detail of everyday living that is shared
absolutely.
with you. So aside from smelly dog stories and the cat's horror at the smelly dog story, what other are there other stories that stand out in your mind?
There was this was a dog in spirit as well, and she came from a dog sanctuary, and she had to be put to sleep. The people decided it was time for her to be put to sleep. She had a really rough life. She had a big fractured skull, and it was really quite sad. And one of the ladies from the dog sanctuary wanted me to check in with her because she was worried that they hadn't asked her if she was ready to be put to sleep. Not everybody at the sanctuary is that way inclined. They all care for dogs immensely, but not everybody's, that sort of in tune with that. And I connected with her, and she had some incredible things, much like the video yesterday from Boss Dog, but much the same thing. And one of the questions that this lady asked her was about this fractured skull. And she asked her something like, she referred to her as being deformed, and this animal had such an aged wisdom to her, and she answered, why do you see it as being deformed? I just see it as looking a different way to the dog next to me. And as I'm writing this, I'm just thinking, oh gosh, I feel like I've been gently, even though the question hasn't come from me, I felt like I'd been gently put in my place, like, who are you calling deformed? do you know what I mean? And you have this quite often. I find the majority of the time animals have this gentle wisdom, like when they tell you off like a grandmother would, so with kindness and with life experience. Do you know what I mean? So she was amazing. I've spoken to some cheeky animals. I've spoken to a dog that I couldn't make sense. I thought it was me. I couldn't make sense of what this dog was. I kept having to come back to the reading, and it was also early days. And eventually I got back to the lady and I said, look, I'm sorry I'm taking so long. I don't know if I'm having an off day, but every time I connect to this dog, and she says, no, he's like that all the time. He's like he's on some sort of drug. He's running around like a crazy animal. She said it's like he's got ADHD. He's all over the place. And I thought, I'd clearly kind of picked that up from the reading, because every time I tried to settle down and chat to him, he'd be off running around. And so, but each animal's different, and it's wonderful, and you never know where it's going to go, whether it's going to be a business-like cat, or a very young at heart dog, or a wise horse. And that's the beauty of it. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah.
So I guess the question that begs to be asked is, in your experience, what do most animals want?
What do they want? Security. And by that, I mean a sense of knowing what's what. A question that a lot of people ask is, what makes you happy? Obviously, that's the main question, the winning question. What makes you happy? Are you happy? Do you feel loved? And quite often that comes up as an answer to, do you feel happy? It's like, I feel secure. I feel like I know and trust my surroundings, and I know there'll be food at a certain time. I know where my bed is. I know where the outside is. I know my people. I know that there's nothing just around the corner. And I think that when an animal trusts and feels secure in its surroundings, only then can it truly be itself, because it's not kind of on guard, not knowing what's around the corner. So I think, I think security and love, obviously, but the love comes with the security. So
Can you act like a bridge between person and animal? So for instance, if there was a big change coming up where people were going to move house, or if there was a puppy coming into the house, or if there had been another change, like a death in the family, could you act like a bridge, not a translator as such, but as a bridge to help explain what was happening?
yes, absolutely. I have just recently brought in some packages for that very reason, because I was just doing individual sessions before. And what was happening was I did have a couple of queries of that sort. So we're thinking of getting a new puppy. We want to know what the cat thinks about that. So one session isn't quite enough, because I want to check in with the cat and say, how do you feel about having a dog in the house? They tell me how they're feeling. And then I can present some scenarios to them. I can present some scenarios of a new dog coming into the house and everybody being happy and everybody feeling loved. So sometimes you need kind of, more than one session for that. And the same would go for, like, I think on my website, I say, like, if you're about to have a baby, because that's going to change the dynamic. That's going to change the dynamic massively in the house. I've had a couple of clients where they've moved countries. And I've actually followed, I followed 2 dogs on their flight. I mean, that was a bespoke service, but that was quite interesting. So watching the flight take off, talk the dogs through the takeoff, check on them halfway through the flight, talk the dogs through the touchdown, so that they knew all the while what the smells were, the sounds were, so that they weren't frightened, that they knew what to expect.
And when they landed and were reunited, I mean, presumably they had to be in quarantine for a bit as well.
No, they were going from Australia to America, so they didn't have to go into quarantine. No,
And goodness for that. So
yes.
So when they landed, were they more relaxed than you would expect dogs to be?
Well, having not spoken to a dog that, that's flown and hasn't been, but what I was able to tell the lady when I checked in with them halfway was that the one dog was feeling nauseous. And I said to her, I can feel that he's got a dodgy tummy, he's not happy. Oh, she's not happy, sorry. And the lady came back immediately and said, oh, no, that's no problem. Whenever she gets stressed, she doesn't eat. So it's probably because she's probably wondering what's going on. And even though she kind of knows what's going on, she won't be eating. So she said, but, don't worry about that. That's fine. And I said, but other than that, she's fine. I said, they have people checking in on them. And, but yeah, that at least when she collected them, they were calm. They weren't,
And that's what I was wondering, because although you personally haven't had experience of doing this sort of thing before, handlers on the other side would know how dogs generally arrive.
Yes.
And so if they were calm, that's great. It's a bit like because I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and I'm helping women prepare for birth, and when
yes,
we know that there's a lot of research that says that babies who are born in a very relaxed way, where the mother is very relaxed and everything is fine, are much more likely to be relaxed babies, less likely to cry, much calmer. So it's again, it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Where because you're intervening and you're talking them through the experience where it's not so frightening, then it works out that they're calmer. Yeah, well, that's fantastic to hear. So this is wonderful. And If people want to find you, Colleen, where do they go?
Well, if you're on LinkedIn, obviously I'm on LinkedIn as Colleen Kersey, but I do have a website, which is authenticpathways.net. And that includes both the tarot and the animal communication, but it's very clear it is animal communication on the first page, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I have all the contact details on there. More than happy to chat as well if people want to ask questions about the process. I understand it's a bit woo-woo for some people, and I'm happy to clarify and just make people feel comfortable that it's okay. So
good, wonderful. Well, thank you so much
You're very,
for
very welcome.
sharing your experience with us. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.